Setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. I guess it's running live. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, we're live.
Hey, being live.
Mike Willis on post block.
Yeah, this is my only way of getting onto Facebook. If they don't rip us down. Fucking assholes.
I'm just trying to give a voice to the voiceless out here, you know. Being a man of the people. So, Breaker, what's your 20 today? Where's your head at?
Oh, bud. My head is all over the place, man. We had an eventful night in Fredericksburg, as most of y'all know. I missed the first half of the protesting, but I showed up in the fourth quarter and helped bring it to a close.
Y'all remember that time that Mike Willis showed up at halftime of the protest and Mud Dogs won the Bourbon Bowl?
Goddamn right. Hey, man, for real, one thing I want to address, and a lot of people might not agree with me on this, whatever. Just one thing that I want to say, and I've already said it to my Instagram followers and everything. It's just that, like, we have to be real about what we're doing on our side. We can't create like this glorified narrative of what's happening, because I've seen a lot of posts today and some yesterday that were saying that like everybody was so shocked at how everything went down last night. And it's like, if we really showed up to these protests and expected nothing to go wrong and didn't expect to be tear gassed, we wouldn't have showed up preemptively with milk. We wouldn't have showed up with the intention of curing ourselves after we got tear gassed. So I just want to like we have to be real with it. Like, I'm all for it. I showed up, I got tear gassed like 4 times. So like, I understand it, but I just want to say we need to be real about it, because we all knew what was going to happen when we shut down those roads. We all knew what we were going after. We all knew what we were doing, and we knew what response we were going to trigger. So I just want everybody to be real with that and not stop painting this weird picture of like, oh my God, it happened. Why are they doing this? Why? When we all know that we set out with the intention for that to happen, or we would not have brought milk and masks and all that stuff to cure us once we got tear gas, which I'm thankful for everybody that had milk, because like, God damn, tear gas sucks dick.
Yeah, when I got tear gassed on Cowan, I didn't have anything. I didn't get any help. I just got tear gassed. And I was like, does anybody have water? And like, there's no organization. There's no like solidarity. There's just battle buddies, and that's fucking it. Like, no, like, right. Oh, there's no organization, man. It's frustrating.
I guess by the time I got there, everybody was pretty thoroughly organized, because like there was one of my friends, Eddie, she was out there. She had milk in like a mustard container, like that and she's just like hitting people with that direct squirt. Like, that shit had me geeking out, man. I got a good one of the 4 times I took the milk, the worst out of them, but all the other times I just kind of took it because I don't know. It's one of the things that if you're going to be in a tear gas situation, you kind of need to know how to handle yourself as the tear gas is affecting you. So it's kind of good to let it soak in a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to like process what's happening to you. But also, yeah, it's important that like if you're tear gassed and it's hard for you to see, you need to like wiggle back into the middle of the crowd, because what they're trying to do is disorient certain people, get them separated from the herd, and then like a zebra or like a lion taking down a gazelle, you know what I mean? They're trying to get you out of the pack. So when you get gas, you got to make sure you don't stray too far from the herd.
Heard it, man. That was There's this dude walking around with this fucking speaker, and he was blasting all kinds of fucking music. It was great.
Yeah, when we went to Cowan yesterday, there was like these two like Spanish guys, and one of them had like some really heavy hardcore like Spanish hip hop playing on his little Bose speaker. They're like La Rosa, La Rosa. It was good times.
That's awesome. It was interesting too, man. I wanna for everybody out there, especially my producer friends, if any of y'all can find footage of like the cops pushing their line forward, and you can sample that beat they were making with their fucking feet and their shields, because like every time they would shoot the gas out and they would start doing that little, like all of them smacking their shields and shit, telling us that they were going to advance forward. I want somebody to sample that and put it in a beat if you can. If you hear me, Facebook world, find a video of the cops advancing forward and then sample that fucking sound of them clapping their shields to make a beat and make a song to it.
That'd be fucking cool, man. That'd be powerful.
It would be. I was sitting there thinking, like, man, I'm like watching tear gas balls go by, and all you hear is, and I'm like, God damn, this would be a hell of a fucking music video. Like,
so were they shooting rubber bullets on Caroline Street last night? They were at City Hall.
I didn't feel any. I didn't see anybody feeling like it. It seemed like it was mostly tear gas. But then again, people also weren't like, I don't know, they're going to protect City Hall differently than they're going to protect
Caroline Street.
Yeah. And they were strategically using the buildings to funnel everybody where the fuck they wanted them to go. Like, cause they were like, and then they'd come down this block, and then they'd come down this block, and then they'd advance forward to this block and advance to this one. So they were like fucking.
Yeah, they're militarized, man. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's why we have to, if we're gonna be out there, first of all, there has to be an end game in mind. There has to be a call to action. There has to be some sort of behind the scenes, like actual, like pen to paper type shit going down. But when we're on the streets, we have to be more organized as a people, man, and because they're a gang, they're a unit.
Well, not even the fact that they're a gang, because like I kind of like they are a gang in a sense, but they know that city, they know their surroundings
right
very well, and they're not trained well for some circumstances, but like in other things, they are trained to use the landscape to their tactical advantage. Right. And that's one thing that no protesting mind person is showing up to do, because everybody's mostly there to just fucking get the point across and yell and scream about the point. So it's like they don't take time to plot out the escape routes and all of that stuff. And that's another thing people need to like you gotta be aware, because if you're gonna do this stuff, the goal is to not get arrested in the process. Yeah. So like that's more where the mobilization comes in to effect, is like you need to be able to know fucking Kenny Roger, you got to be able to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. You need to know when you need to disperse, and you need to know when you need to keep towing that line, because at a certain point it's going to get to a point where they're not going to give you that option to keep trying to just push you back. They're going to start arresting people.
Right.
That's the thing you're trying to avoid. And like if you look at the successful Hong Kong protest, the way that they were doing it were like flash mobs. They would fucking show up in one area. They would stay there, get their point across long enough for the police to come mobilize against them, basically. And then everybody would disperse and meet up at the very next location. And then by the time the police found out that they all mobilized at the next point, they were able to fucking protest there for a little while, then the police would have to remobilize to them, and by the time the police got there, they're on to their next spot.
Right.
So that's where like the whole mobilization and all that shit comes. And I hate when people just like throw those words out, because a lot of people start thinking of like fighting. The last thing you want to do is fight those people, because at the end of the day, they have fucking real weapons along with those fucking rubber bullets and shields. So you need to, the goal, like there's this, one of the things I wrote down here is a quote from Obama. And where I don't agree with all the Obama stuff, but this is very, very fitting, and it's along the lines of the same shit that Killer Mike was talking about. And it says the bottom line is that if we want to bring real change, then the choice isn't between protest and politics. We have to do both. We have to mobilize to raise awareness, and we have to organize and cast our ballots to make sure we elect candidates who will act on reform and become the candidates that we wish to see in office. We have to stress the importance of participating in politics, particularly at the local level, where on the ground level, criminal justice and law enforcement are effective. And that is a very important thing. And that I feel is that really Killer Mike is the one that opened me up to a lot of this thinking, because a lot of us, at the end of the day, bullshit, me included, we talk about how we want all these changes. We talk about how we want cops to be a certain way. We talk about how we want politicians to be a certain way, but none of us are willing to go actually become a cop or a politician or a president for that matter. Like, a lot of us don't want to put in that work. Hell, we have a hard enough time in this community organizing events just for fucking comedy or hip hop or anything like that. We have a hard time putting stuff together like that.
Yeah.
And then
we were joking about that the other day when we were walking around with the signs.
Yeah, I'm like, so it's like we have such a hard time just getting people on board with that, telling somebody that we need to become the police enforcement or we need to become the politicians. It's like, fucking, whoa, no, I don't want no part of that. And I get it. Like, who wants to be a cop? You want that? Yeah. I don't want that, y'all. That sucks, because at the end of the day, there's like fucking killers out there. You know what I mean? There's fucking killers that have to be arrested. We can't. That's another reason why I have a problem with that all cops are bad bullshit. Like, I know that cops are horrible, and I know that some cops are good, and I know that without a law enforcement group, there would be a bunch of killers hanging out in the world that are ready to kill. And the people that are willing to kill are going to be the ones that end up in power.
Right.
You know what I mean? So there's like, it's a balance. It's all of this, everything, there's a balance of good and evil. You know what I mean?
And another problem though with this country though is like, well, first of all, with all that being said, like, we need to hold each other and ourselves more accountable, as a community and just as individuals, and not let shit like that happen. Secondly, a big problem with the police state that we're in, or with the bad cops, at least, however you want to put it, is that it's such a monetized system. You know, privately owned prisons are such a profitable industry in this country. So that creates a lot of reform and laws and cops being hired that aren't necessary. And if we were able to hold ourselves more accountable, then we wouldn't need all that shit. You're reading Killer Mike quotes. I've been reading this essay by Henry David Thoreau. It's called On the Duty of Civil Disobedience. It's free on Google if anybody wants to read it. So couple things he said that I really liked. One thing was, let every man make known what kind of government would command his respect, and that will be one step toward obtaining it. I think that's really powerful, just for us to voice, like you're doing right now, and how you're saying that, people like you or I need to try to get into public office, or be a part of the police force and shit like that if you want to see change. Another thing he went on to say is, can there not be a government in which majorities do not virtually decide right and wrong, but conscience, in which majorities decide only those questions to which the rule of expediency is applicable? Must the citizen ever for a moment or the least degree resign his conscience to the legislator? Why has every man a conscience then? So that's something that everyone needs to keep in mind. Protesters and police and military alike. You know, we all have a conscience. We all know what's right and wrong. For the most part, we do. Like you said, there's still killers out there. There's still fucked up individuals out there. But if we can hold ourselves more accountable individually to our own conscience, then we won't need to be as policed as much.
Yeah. And that's one of the things, like I was talking to one of the dudes last night, because I've been talking about this shit to everybody. That's what my whole purpose of even going out there last night was. I was talking to this one young kid, and why should I have to become the system? Why can't it just work? Why can't I just do this and that and not, or why can't we just love each other and not have cops? And I was like, well, see, in a perfect world, we would be able to not have cops. Like
Yeah.
there's this thought of some crazy utopia that humans, I think it's like that seed that we get planted in us from hearing about
Like the
like this,
Garden of Eden.
yeah, like shit like that. This seed that's planted that for some reason we're always reaching for this utopia where there's no bad and everybody's on the same everything and there's nothing negative happening. It's like, that sounds great. Like, I wish with every part of my being that we could ever reach a utopia. But the facts are is we live in a world that isn't utopia. There's literally a straightforward balance of good people and there are bad people. No matter what is happening, what part of this world you're on, there's fucking good people and bad people. And the bad people are typically the ones that want to control in a certain way. Like a lot of them are there, and because normally good people don't wish to control motherfuckers.
Right.
That's why you get a lot of people, and then it puts like the people that are writing all the crazy laws and that are like sending the enforcements down, that like, because people have to write the law for somebody down here to be told to enforce it. You know what I mean? So
Right.
you're giving like bad guy writing bad law, giving it to this guy who may be good or may be bad, but if he doesn't do his job, he's not going to have a job anymore. So it's like you force that person to choose over an income to consciousness, and it's a very hard line, and that's why a lot of the times when cops do speak up and say anything, they get fucking demoted and reprimanded and all kinds of shit like that. 'Cause I'm like Killer Mike, man. I have family that are cops, and I know they're good cops. They're not bad people. And I also have family that are fucking criminals and that are horrible people. So it's like I literally see the best best and worst of both sides just within my family. So
Right.
it's like
Right.
it's always there's always a fine line, man.
I think a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people that see that too, but there also are an equal amount of people that need to have their minds opened up to that idea.
You just segued me perfectly. Marcus Garvey, one of my favorite fucking people from history. Liberate the minds of men, and ultimately you will liberate the bodies of men. It
I
all
like that.
starts in it all starts in here. Like it, even Obama himself says that fucking whenever violence happens, it's going to be met, and it's met with more violence. It impedes the movement forward of any movement. You know what I mean? He was saying that when all the riots happened before his elections, you know,
Right.
and so it's like, I don't know. That's another problem that we got. It's like the news, the way the news is going right now. It like two people on opposing teams could say the exact same thing, and outrage will come from one, and outrage won't come from another, just
Right.
because of like pack.
Yeah.
This is my pack, so it's okay if they say it, but when that pack says it, it's not.
Right.
And the
That's why I
media
like that's why I like our group of friends, because especially you as a friend, because we don't yes man each other. We're willing to call each other out on our bullshit.
right.
And it's okay to
When that
disagree
happens,
at times.
yeah, real shit.
Like you keep I don't want to disagree with you wholly, but you keep talking about like integrating ourselves into the system, and I want to create a new system. And honestly, now that I say it out loud, in order to create a new system, ultimately we're going to have to integrate ourselves into the current broken system. Um, but something I really want to talk about with you, I know you really want to talk about, and I want to listen to you talk about it, is this word revolution.
Oh
There's
yes.
so much power in words and the meaning of words. Let's talk about revolution, Mike.
Yeah. All right. Well, first of all, I have a big problem with the word itself, revolution, because if you look up the definition of a revolution, all it means is that you start at one point and you circle right back around to the same point you started from. And you can take that into any revolution that's ever happened. Like you go back to 1776 when we had the revolution from the British. What happened? We broke free from the British, and then we oppressed people in our own country and started taxing. Right?
Right.
Then you fast forward to the fucking, people call it a civil war, but that was another revolution of the mind that I feel. We started at with this idea that we needed to make all people equal, and we started a revolution. It so much to the fact that it separated our country in half and then brought it all back together. And then what happened? They killed, for one, they killed the leader of that revolution. And then eventually, after Reconstruction was, it like, because Reconstruction was a super prosperous time for every color of person. Like, of course, not everybody, but there was a lot of good happening out of Reconstruction. And then it circled right fucking back around to Jim Crow. And then after that, we get to the civil rights. You can call it the civil rights movement or whatever you want to call it, but I see it as another fucking revolution. We hit the civil rights movement, and then we passed some good things, and some things started opening up, and things were starting to look better. And then now we've completely circled right back to impeded progress. So my whole purpose and like the why I wrote that sign I had when me and you were out protesting was that we got to stop talking in terms of revolution. Like we literally have to stop. Fuck a revolution. When has any, you look through any history books, when has any revolution panned out in any way that fully benefited the people? None of them. None of them. You can go to Haiti, you can go to France, you can go to China, you can go to fucking Mongolia. All of them. It always fucking starts with a good principle, and then the few brains use the masses to do the work for them, and then assume control and create the system where they are now that control piece, and there's oppressed people underneath. So the term of revolution is one that I swear we need to lose, and we need to replace it with breaking the cycle. Because why the fuck do we just want to break something up just to create a new something that's the same fucking thing? Like
Right.
we need to be breaking that cycle and going off on a different trajectory. Now, that being said, of course, there's always room for it to circle back around because fucking history repeats itself. But unless we try to break the cycle of everything, instead of going with revolution, we're never gonna fucking know. You know what I mean? So it's like, and that all involves that whole breaking the cycle of that all involves going and becoming a part of the system. And look, you don't have to become a cop or become a fucking politician to break that cycle of how politicians corrupt us. That's where you just have to be actively voting, and that right
Right.
there is big. Because if you look at presidential elections, our last presidential election, there was like fucking 52% of the population that didn't vote at all, of eligible voters. So that means 20, like around, it was like 24% voted for Republican, and like 23 vote or 26 voted for
Democrat.
Democrat. And then there was like a small, like 3% number for the Green parties and stuff. And then the rest of it was non-eligible voters that didn't vote. So it's like, if you took all those people that didn't vote, and you could literally take that number of people and vote them Green Party, and you literally just beat the Democratic and Republican plantation. Like, and that's one thing that I also think we need to address in this country, is we keep relying on these two broken systems of governance to fix us. To fit, we keep looking for the Democrats are going to be our saviors, or the Republicans are going to save us, and like it's not going to work like that. These two parties have been around since forever now, and they're still failing. If they're still failing us, there's a good reason to believe that something about both of them is horribly flawed. And
Right.
nobody's willing to acknowledge that, except for the fact that we do acknowledge it, because we're just like, oh, I just had to pick the lesser of evil. When
Right.
you pick evil, evil still exists. So
Right.
what are you saying? You're saying you'd rather just pick evil than give a shot to somebody else.
Right. Yeah, we need to break
And
the cycle in all facets.
yeah, all facets. And another huge one, is we got to stop making this a money game, especially when it comes to presidencies. If you are running for president, you should have equal coverage on the media. There should be no reason why the media picks out of, like, take the Democratic National Convention shit, where they have all these different candidates, and they pick which ones get to speak on TV based off of how much money they got donated to them. In what sense does that make any sense?
Right.
It
Right.
doesn't make any sense. If you're running for political office, they should cover you unbiasedly, regardless
Right.
of money. You shouldn't need money to run campaigns. The media should be focusing on you and your ideas.
Right.
And if they're not focusing on all of the ideas, and they're just giving like this is another good one for fucking Rand Paul when Trump won the election. Rand Paul was the only logically thinking Republican on that whole fucking stand. And they would only give him 20 seconds to respond to questions, when they were giving people like Donald Trump and fucking the who's the fat dude from New Jersey. They were giving them
Oh,
like,
Chris Christie.
yeah, they were giving them like 80 seconds to fucking respond, and only giving people like Rand Paul 20 seconds to fucking respond. So
Yeah.
that right there
We
shows
need
you
an
the
equity for ideas.
exactly, because you can't. And they did the same with Tulsi Gabbard on the Democratic side. Like Tulsi Gabbard is somebody who has experienced war. She knows what the cost of war is. She understands it because she's visually seen it. Like, and to deny somebody with views like that because they're a little abstract in the way they straight shoot, because a lot of the thing the DNC had a problem with was she was fucking shooting from the hip, especially on the other female candidates. Like, she was not holding back anything, and that's a threat to the status quo. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like those people with those ideas like that are literally, that people won't say that they're being silenced, but when you're just picking who's got the most donor money to decide who gets the TV time, you're literally silencing somebody because they didn't earn enough money for their campaign. And that is a structure of our system that we need to completely dismantle. Because if we want to get proper ideas across, if we want to get combative ideas across of these very intellectual people that have really good ideas, we have to just cover them equally. And John F. Kennedy was somebody who emphasized that right before he died, when he gave that piece about the president and the press. The press's job is to keep the people informed, not spread a narrative.
Right.
That's
and keep the president honest.
Yeah, and keep the president fucking honest.
Yeah. I have a big problem with the way the press is treated recently. I mean, especially with, I understand that some press is super editorial and biased, and sometimes they do spread false narratives or spread a narrative that fits their agenda. But regardless of the fact, still sometimes they'll be in press conferences and they ask perfectly good questions, and it's like, I don't care if that's you, me, a 5-year-old kid with a box of crowns. If he just asked you that question, answer it. You know, don't just your fake news. No, answer the question. Obama, he would answer questions that he didn't like very smugly, and you know what I mean, like a little bit of an asshole.
Right.
But he had his way that he would go about it, that he still answered them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he kind of go ahead.
I was just gonna say the same with Bush.
So,
but you know the comment. There's a common denominator though. There is that if you notice, the only other actor who was ever a president responded in the same type of ways. Like Ronald Reagan was the only other actor that was ever a president who was a Democrat. Same story as Trump, was a Democrat first and then ran as a Republican. And he was the type to just, like, he did it in more of a little more of a sophisticated way, I think, just because of the times that he was alive and like the standards that public held,
right,
the speakers. But like he would do the same shit. He would cut off reporters and be like, nah, look, first off, we ain't taking this shit. Now the next actor, which anybody can say what they want. Donald Trump is a motherfucking actor. He's had fucking shows. He's a fucking actor, man. He knows how to read a script. I mean, he was on the fucking WWE a few times. But
yeah.
He's the same fucking way. He's like, was a Democrat, now is all of a sudden a Republican, and he's just fucking talking mad shit. And I don't know. I don't think he should. I agree with you fully on that. But it's like I'm almost at like this point. Like, what did you expect? Like, did you really expect Donald Trump to have etiquette, bro? Like, this motherfucker. Anybody expected there to be etiquette in anything, regardless of which side of it you were on, whether you were the one voting for him thinking he was going to have etiquette to make you look good, or whether you're the person going against him thinking that he needs to have etiquette. It's like, bro, it's fucking Donald Trump. You're fired, guy. Like,
yeah. It's like, what did you expect? Just like the tear gas.
Yeah, right. Like, fuck, bro. Like, what did you expect? He's a fucking actor. He's fucking Hollywood.
Yeah. I think the presidential position anyway is an acting job.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like this. When the president gets to be the president, somebody's got to brief him that has security clearance to everything that is. Who is that? Those people are unelected.
Right.
Those aren't elected officials that just stay up in the White House all the time. They don't just come in and all of a sudden it's like, here's the fucking controls, guys. Here's your fucking, you have it and go run with it. No, it doesn't work like that. There's people that are there and that have been there for all these years, and they run this system, and then they get a new guy every 8 years, and they fuck that guy's head up. Why do you think every president that becomes president goes in with nice colored hair, nice fucking smiles on their faces, and then by the time they get out of office, they look run down and beat up,
Yep. Yep.
gray head.
Yep. It's all that unwanted knowledge and all those sleepless nights, a lot of stress. A friend of mine's dad, he works for he's the director of the National Archives in DC, and he has very much the same look to him. Like it's just like he knows too much. You know what I mean? Like, and he's scared if he might say something, so he's got to distance himself from society.
Right.
That's when you become George Bush and you start just painting portraits of
Yeah.
soldiers from Iraq. What the fuck ever.
Right. I didn't even
Oh,
know he was a painter until recently. I've stumbled across his video and I was like, the fuck? Oh, just been painting.
we're just gonna paint a happy little twin tower. Okay. Um,
Uh,
I,
so,
I, I know if anybody's watching this right now, listening to this, and everything that's going on right now, they want to hear you and I talk about at least the possible conspiracy angles of everything that's going on. Um, we've been talking about that recently about smoke screens and race baiting and the media sensationalizing things and see
yeah.
it kind of seemed like we were whether it was a staged event or not, the news has definitely been sensationalizing it. And part of that to me seems like it was because we were all kind of getting to common grounds and common places with this COVID and um, this global conspiracy with everything that's going on. And then all of a sudden this happens, and now we're in racial division and us versus the police division and stuff like that. It seems like we're getting tricked into destroying our own cities and our own supply lines, like you've been saying.
Yeah. For sure does, man. One of the weirdest parts of all of it for me has been like just finding out that like in a majority of the cities that are like really in bad shape right now, a lot of the people in them are from not from there. They
Right.
just chose those cities to show up to and fuck up. So it's like you got to start asking, why are these outside entities coming to our cities and destroying them when they don't live here? Because they don't live there and they destroy that your city. They don't have the consequence of a destroyed pipeline. They go back home, and their part of town is, or their part of wherever the fuck they're from is untouched. You know what I mean? And that's one of
Right.
the things that kind of worried me last night at our protest, because I didn't plan on doing this, but when I first got up there, I was standing by like on one of the sidewalks, and I started talking to these dudes, and I was like, it's kind of weird that like people are coming around from outside of the area just to protest. And these dudes from South Carolina were literally the people I was talking to, and they were like, "Yeah, man, it's weird. We're from South Carolina. We ain't even from here. We're just here to watch it unfold." And I'm like, "What the fuck? Like, why are you from South Carolina here in Fredericksburg? Like, maybe you got family at the protest or whatever. Like, maybe that's why you showed up. But either way, why are you coming from South Carolina to come protest in fucking Fredericksburg, Virginia, of all places?" And then like a few more people that I asked where they were from North Carolina and then other parts of Virginia. And at least like other parts of Virginia are understandable. You know what I mean?
Right. I saw a lot of people down there that I didn't recognize, and people like trying
Yeah.
to lead the charge too that were like, I've never seen you before.
Yeah. And it's like we're out and about in our cities and in our communities, and we all pretty much like, we're not a giant city, but and like, of course everybody's not going to know everybody that's here, but we at least have a idea of who lives in our communities. You know what I mean? Just from traveling around town and stuff, you see certain people at
Right.
a constant rate, and then when you just know that there are people from the other states just chilling up in the middle of your protest, it kind of has to make you fucking wonder.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I think it's important for folks like you and I who care about our town, don't agree with rioting and burning down of local businesses and destroying local economy, or like Killer Mike said, destroying your home. I think it's important for people like you and I to be out there to keep an eye out for people like that and make sure that there's no instigators destroying our town. And
Right.
I don't mean like gather all rednecks, get your AK-47s and your ARs, and let's go stand on the streets of Fredericksburg. But if you're from town and you're walking tonight, I think they're planning to be out again tonight. Um, Keep an eye out for out of towners. You know what I mean? Keep an eye out for suspicious people, instigators.
Yeah, keep an eye out for people that just want to break shit.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, because at the end of the day, bro, like, it is what it is, and whatever's gonna happen is gonna happen. But like, we still gotta live here.
yeah, exactly, exactly. And I don't know, man. Like you've been talking about, nobody's thinking about this fully. It's like our supply lines and our markets and everything have already been depleted, especially with like the coronavirus and all these meat processing plants shutting down. Now you got people in all these cities destroying hubs where food comes through. You know what I mean? It's like, well, do you have your own garden? I don't. As much as I talk about supplying my own food, I don't have a fucking garden. I'm still relying on the corporate tit. So,
Right.
what
And
are we gonna?
that's the biggest thing with like the destroying of shit. Like, if you're gonna destroy shit, I can't condone destroying
I
anything. Like,
can't condone destroying
I
shit
can't
either.
I can't do it. But like, you got to think about. We got to stop thinking in short-term gains, because it's not. This isn't a short-term game. This is about setting up for future generations.
Right,
This isn't just for us to go out and get some instant gratification for ourselves because we protested. That's not what
right,
it's about. It's literally about setting up a society that is in the vision of what we want for a future and for the kids that come after us and every generation that follows that. We're trying to
yeah,
look out for that. When this is not like a fucking a short term volleyball match. You know what I
right.
mean?
And we can't like protest ourselves into submission. You know what I mean? If you are gonna destroy shit and loot or whatever, you got to be careful to what extent. Like you can't loot and riot yourself into your own submission to the point where it's like, oh, I can't even fuel my own riot anymore because there's no food coming in. There's nowhere for it to go to. They can't get in the streets. If you really want disobedience, then stop contributing to your own demise. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
and that's another thing too. Is like, as much as we all hate the system, the government has control of our supply lines,
yeah,
so
you
they
can't
can cut them.
destroy. Yeah, yeah. You can't destroy the means of production. You have to seize it. Yeah. But no, there's been like pictures and stuff of people
You going,
smashing out
bro?
windows that were like what what that one guy was that smashed out like the auto zone in Minneapolis. He was identified as a police officer.
Yeah,
Um,
man. There's one really damning thing that, like, if you watch, which I know we gotta, like Mike said, Killer Mike said, man, it's like murder porn that we're fucking watching.
yeah.
And I know it's hard to watch, but it's a video. I think I shared it with you guys earlier. Is that video like that? I don't think anybody's paying attention to. Is like when they, after they executed the dude on the street, George. Uh, After they executed him, they wait, and then the paramedics show up. And then when the paramedic jumps out, it's a fucking cop wearing a cop uniform. Not a paramedic in a paramedic uniform. He's wearing a fucking black vest and everything.
Yeah, he almost looks like an agent. Everything was like tan and
Right. Yeah, 10. And I'm like, when in the history of any time have you ever seen Paramedics show up, not check one vital, and just throw somebody up on a gurney and throw them in the back of a fucking car.
Yeah,
I
very
have never
strange.
seen. I don't care if it's a fucking, even in a supposed DOA car accident, the first responder is gonna check for a pulse. Like that is like literally their job. They show up, they check the pulse and see what they can do to aid in the situation. These motherfuckers literally just showed up, put a body on a gurney, and throw that bitch back in the back of the fucking cop
Yeah.
car. Or in
And
the
then,
back of the fucking.
yeah, so many things about that are wrong. Like the amount of time that they held down on his neck, the 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 way the other officers just kind of stood around and watched, and also the way they weren't verbal with George Floyd.
Yeah.
It's not like they were like giving him any commands. Nothing was
Yeah.
really said other than like to the people, like get back.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's crazy because, and I hate even like comparing it like this, but when you look at other murder by cop videos, the cop is super vocal every time, like any of them. I don't care which ones you go and look at. There's cops and there's yelling and there's commands, and then there's normally a oh fuck moment when they realize they fucked up. You
right.
know what I mean? Whether it's them shooting somebody on purpose or fucking whatever the fuck it is, there's normally like an oh shit of awareness moment that happens. You can see it in their face. It might only take a few seconds, but you can definitely tell it happened. And then the same thing happens. Paramedics show up, they check to see if there's anything they can do. They check vitals, they do all that shit. And then if they can't, they fucking take
Yeah.
the body off, of course. So it's like why, like it's hard to pay attention to details when you're seeing something so gruesome happen, because it was
Right.
fucking there was, you cannot be a human being. And I'm looking directly at everyone watching this video. You cannot be a human being and see that fucking video and in any way justify it. There is literally no way you can. And if you can, you are a part of the problem. And that's from me to you. If you got a problem with it, I can't fucking help you because it's fucking true. And you
Yeah.
know it just as well as I do. But
I co-sign that 100%.
yeah, but when you're looking through this video, it's like I said, it's hard to see these weird little details because you're so consumed by your emotions of the moment. It's such a like, oh my god, like it enrages you to the point where
Yeah.
you wish you were there so you could fucking step in and do something.
Hmm.
Like, so you don't pay attention to those little fucking details. But then, like Killer Mike said, after you've watched the murder porn enough and it's starting to become not so much of a shock and awe, that you start noticing the little details of the video. And then it's
Uh-huh.
like, oh man, there's something, like after the initial emotions settle a little bit, there's just something that's not quite right. And then you
Yeah.
add all this crazy shit where fucking you're seeing pallets of bricks and bottles being dropped off in cities. Like, what the fuck is that? Is this the Matrix? Is this literally the fucking Matrix? They're just
Yeah.
setting up fucking mystery boxes for us to fucking pull out of when we fucking riot. Like, are
Yeah.
you kidding me?
So,
Nobody thinks anything's wrong with that.
do you see the connections with Agenda 21?
I don't know what agenda it is anymore, man. Like I really don't know. I know that all this, everything that's happening right now is really fucking sketchy,
Yeah.
and there's definitely something more than just mass protests
Yeah.
and COVID-19. Like, people can call me whatever they want, but there is something happening right now that is, it's just not, I don't know what the fuck you can call it, to
It
be
seems like
honest.
we're being pawned into relinquishing more control.
Yeah, no doubt.
Um, what I meant with how I see like the correlation with Agenda 21 is I already kind of saw it with coronavirus and the way they're like trying to get everybody inside and keep everybody closer together. But now it's like with all these cities and upheaval and rioting, and they're destroying all the cities. That just seems like that's a part of it too, because that's where they want everybody to be. So if they can start locking you down on these cities and start imposing these curfews and start giving them more control, I don't know. I just see it like fitting in the puzzle somewhere.
Right. That's another thing too that you got to think about this situation is that we've all been in this state of angst for 2 months now, like
Right.
2 to 3 months. So everybody is already fucking anxious as shit. And then you do some shit like this, and those angst emotions and those anger emotions are all colliding in with people's fucking body chemistry, and it's literally a powder keg situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And the more that we watch the news and our social media feeds, the more emotional we get and the more that we let our emotions instead of logic drive us, and the less that we sit back and look at things the entire scope and really think about and talk about with each other what we can be doing to make a difference. So that's what I want to finish this podcast, Mike, with is what's our call to action? What's your call to action?
Man, my call to action for one, well, it's gonna be like a few parts, which I've already gone over some of it, but mainly as far as like in the short term of all the protests and stuff, especially like this is for anybody. You got to be vigilant to people that aim to demean your cause, because there are going to be people inside of your protests and your rallies and all this stuff that are there specifically to disrupt your rally and make it be something it's not supposed to be.
Right.
I want everybody needs to be vigilant to that and not let these people tailspin everything into chaos. Like, and then from like my second part of action is just like we literally have to start participating more. Like that's literally all it is, because we can fucking riot and we can burn this whole motherfucker down, but at the end of the day, the power structure's still gonna be there. You think you're gonna get their bunkers? You can't get their bunkers. They can still fucking look over you from somewhere safe. There's no way burning everything down is gonna make them leave power. Like anybody that thinks that is crazy. So we can't. We literally have to infiltrate the system, and we have to make those changes that we speak so highly of. We have to be that change. We can't just talk about it anymore. And that's
Right.
one of the main things is a lot of people are like, yeah, talk about it. Well, we need change. But then you go back to your same life doing your same old bullshit and never try to fucking be any of the change. And it's like, and I'm guilty of that. I'm not saying that condemning anybody. I'm guilty of that too, because I don't want to become a cop. I don't really want to do that. I don't wish to police over anyone, and I know that that job is a dangerous ass job because there's a lot of dangerous ass people. So I get it, but we have at some point we have to be involved in some facet of the system itself, because if we don't, we're gonna keep asking a system that won't change for us to change. If they
Right.
haven't changed in all this time, how are they going to change without us becoming it and changing it? And that means you need to vote. You need to fucking, like Killer Mike said, you need to beat up on these prosecutors at the ballot box. If there's a prosecutor that's fucking prosecuting badly, you need to beat that motherfucker until he can't fucking get a ballot in his favor. You know what I mean? You need to fucking vote in your fucking local elections. Pay attention to local and federal legislations. Fucking actually actively participate in your government. Because if you don't actively participate in the government, you can't expect anything to change. You can't expect a system that won't change for you when you ask it to just miraculously change without putting in the work. There's an old one of my buddies named the White. Uh, he says this thing about religion. It's pertaining to religion. He says faith without works is dead. You can't have faith in anything and not work for that faith. You cannot just say that you want it to change and it's going to change and then not do nothing to change it. It
Right.
doesn't work like that. It's just simply does not work like that. We have to literally put in the work to make things change, not just talk about it any longer. And
Yeah.
that's the one thing I really want to drive home. And I'm going to keep going out to the fucking events and trying to talk to people about this stuff because I feel like it's really important. And I feel like a lot of people are just looking for that short term gratification from the protests. They're not really willing to put in the work that really brings forth change, like the work that all of our ancestors back in the civil rights movement. Like that's a thing, man. There was white people and black people fighting for those movements and passing those legislations to get things to change. There was white and black people during the Civil War fighting the same fucking cause to change the course of history. And they put in the actual physical work of going to those places and voting and putting the people in power that would actually do something and create the change that we're looking for. And that's one thing that this generation, I feel like my generation included, we don't have that. We like that fucking, all we want is some viral videos, some shock value, and some instant gratification from a like on Instagram. We don't want to go out there and do that behind the scenes fucking going to people door to door and fucking going to bat for a politician that has our views in
Yeah.
mind. We just want some instant gratification for some shit. So I'm sorry to get all emotional on y'all,
No,
man.
you're a beautiful speaker, brother. I love you, man.
Right. Like
You're
I
passionate
just,
about this. You care.
yeah, yeah. And it's just like Killer Mike, man, he is my favorite person to fucking listen to talk about this because he shares the same views as me. So if you need to hear these things that I'm saying from somebody different that you can relate to more, go watch Killer Mike videos. Like, cause he's saying the same fucking things, and we all need to be more proactive in our government, and that includes me. And I
Yeah.
vow to do that. I'm gonna start being more proactive in my fucking government than I've been because like I said, we've been so concentrated on shock value and trying to go viral off of fucking rap music and all this other shit that we ain't been paying attention to the legislation that's been going on underneath us while we're looking for all this other stuff.
Right.
So I'm just like, we just need to start paying attention, man. And we also, the third way to move forward, we need to fucking love each other more
Yeah.
across the board. We're never gonna get a full utopia of all love. It's not gonna happen. There's always gonna be hateful people. It don't matter who you are, where you're from. There's always gonna be somebody that's gonna hate on everything that you're saying and doing.
Love them.
But but we gotta try to fucking love each other more if we're gonna
Yeah.
ever be. You know, it's
Yeah.
just that.
No, I agree with everything you said, and I would just like to add to that, along with everything that you said that about Killer Mike and about putting in the actual work, vowing to be more involved with the community and legislation and politics. I also want to make that same vow. And I also think that it's important to make sure that you have your feet on the street as well. There needs to be a balance. We always talk about balance. So there needs to be a balance between physical protest and let's write a bill. Let's write a letter to the senator. Let's write a on the civil, on the duty of civil disobedience. You're reading that book that you told me about earlier. There's no reason you or I or other people can't be writing stuff like that. And if you feel you can't be on the front lines, if you're disabled or elderly or whatever, there's other ways you can help. Words are powerful. They're just as powerful.
Right.
That's why we're doing this. That's literally why I asked you to do this and broadcast with me, because I know the merit and everything that you have to say, and people need to hear this stuff, because this is just as important as getting out on the street and talking to people.
It's a mixture of both, man, and that's the
Yeah,
like it's gonna make people uncomfortable. That's what getting out on the streets does. But
yeah.
you can't stray away from that discomfort. It's not how it works, you know.
So another thing, another layer, I would just, because if I went on to add my plan of action, it would just be reiterating a lot of what you said. So I want to just add an extra layer to everything you said, because I agree with that. And I encourage everyone to do the same. I'm going to make the same vow you did. But another way that we can love each other more is to be more community based, and not. And another thing that we can do is to defeat the system and break the system is stop contributing to it in certain ways. There's certain ways that we contribute to the system that is lacing up the boot that stomps on your throat. And by that, I mean, the more dependent that we are on foreign oil, and I can't say much, I have a diesel van parked out front. The more that we are dependent on foreign oil, grocery stores, things like that, and the less that we produce ourselves and trade amongst each other, the more power that they have over us. Because those corporations all have lobbyists, and they're all passing legislation that's all stomping on our throat too. You know, as innocent as you want to think Target or whatever is, maybe they're not.
Right.
I could do more research to back up my thought, but what I'm saying is we do need to become more of a community, produce our own goods and resources, and then trade them with each other. Supply lines, organize, mobilize.
Yeah. Real shit. Sorry, Athena made a cameo.
No, that's beautiful. She looks
But
good.
yeah,
How's Anubis?
he's doing good, man.
Did you take him to get a second look?
No, I set the date.
I got you.
That doesn't necessarily like mean that he's definitely not like deathly ill or nothing like that. It just means that he's got a condition, and if you don't nip it in the butt now, it's going to cost him in the long run.
Right. Yeah, I worry about that with Bo, because Bo's never really been to the vet, and he's about to go on the 17th. So I'm just been crossing my fingers that he doesn't have any heartworms or anything like that. So yeah, take care of your dogs, people.
Yeah.
And the police don't just shoot innocent people; they also shoot innocent dogs. No, I need to not use my rhetoric for that.
Right.
I want to use my rhetoric for love, and we do need to love each other. And a lot of our problems could be fixed as a society if we looked within too.
Yeah.
So that's something that we could all stand to do.
Yep.
Mike, thank you for doing this, man. That was really powerful. Everything that you said. Don't apologize for getting emotional. It was very passionate, heartfelt, well said, and everybody needs to hear that. Same as Killer Mike's speech. Go listen to Killer Mike's speech from the Atlanta press conference the other day if you haven't seen it.
Yeah. Also, go look at Killer Mike's speech about Civil War from 2016. That one is a fucking must for anyone.
Yeah. But
and and it's all, man, it's been so frustrating too, because I've been wanting to like comment on all this stuff, but of course, since I'm in jail right now, I'm not allowed. So it's been like frustrating as shit. So thanks for giving me a little platform to talk to everybody.
Yeah, dude, of course. Well, and I've been wanting to talk to you about this shit too, so I figured why not do it in a public forum? Because we do have some differences of opinion on things, but at the end of the day, we meet in a common ground. And I think a lot of people need to realize that about each other, that the more we communicate, the more we'll realize we're not so fucking different.
Yeah, facts.
Another thing that people, instead of watching all those Killer Mike videos, also think is very important, guys, get out there and watch Mike Willis on YouTube. You can subscribe to his channel, watch his music videos.
That's right.
Mike Willis _ get him
on
Instagram, and Mike Willis on Facebook.
Yeah, and then you can look up my YouTube. It's Mike Willis Man, all one word.
Yep.
And fucking I was gonna say one more thing too. everybody that's going to be protesting from here on out, if you didn't know, the governor has enacted new rules to this. So they're going to start arresting you. Now, all I'm saying is you're more valuable to us in the cause, not in jail. So you have to be smart. You have to be smart about what you do.
Right.
All right.
And that also means when you're out there that stick with your herd. Don't get separated.
Yeah. And if you do get separated, just get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, get out of there.
Be safe, guys.
Yeah, and if you're super really cool with Mike and I and we trust you, contact us. We know we have an underground railroad set up. There are safe places downtown. There are allies in downtown. I can neither confirm nor deny that I will be out tonight.
Nah, me neither.
I'll be doing Bible study here with the dog and
right.
drinking red wine. All right, Mike. I love you, bud. You have a good night, brother, man.
Yeah, man, you too. Love you, dude.
See you later.
Peace.